Om Dare Du Dare Du Re So Ha. Om Dare Du Dare Du Re So Ha.
Hello, everyone. Such a joy to be with you, even virtually. I believe you just completed your meditation, so for those who'd care to, I invite you to take a moment to bring to mind the Buddha in the space in front of you. And if you'd care to, you can join me in our refuge. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha through the positive potential I create by practicing generosity, ethics, patience, joyous effort, concentration, and wisdom. May attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha through the positive potential I create by practicing generosity, ethics, patience, joyous effort, concentration, and wisdom. May I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. I take refuge until I'm enlightened in the Buddhas, the Dharma, and the Sangha through the positive potential I create by practicing generosity, ethics, patience, joyous effort, concentration, and wisdom. May I attain Buddhahood in order to benefit all sentient beings. All right. Well, so good to be with all of you. As you're probably aware, I am traveling, and so I just have such joy in my heart that we get to continue the teachings and support each other as we unpack these methods for cultivating, well, wisdom, compassion, ultimately freedom from suffering and mental and emotional afflictions, path of awakening. Incredibly grateful we get to do this. So currently, just FYI, I am in California. I'm actually at my brother's house in Southern California. Had the opportunity to come out and participate in a friend's wedding and went and see some family and do some work out here. So really wonderful to spend some time with people, helping people out here. All right. So having said that, let's get to the teaching. Yeah, that's what we're here for. So we're unpacking right now the method of cultivating bodhicitta, the method of the 7-point cause and effect method. Yeah, I always was, well, originally was taught uh, 6 cause, 1 result. But point being, if we go through these stages, this is a method, a very traditional, time-tested method of cultivating great compassion, bodhicitta, the mind of awakening. And so we've already worked through the 0 point, which is equanimity, and then seeing everyone as having been our mother. Last week was repaying the kindness. And now we're at, no, remembering their kindness. And tonight is repaying their kindness. And so again, the context here is so important to remember. The real primary cause of our mental and emotional suffering, primary cause at the core, is grasping to ourselves in a way we do not exist. Now, this is how we eliminate all suffering and all misperception, is seeing how we exist. And if we start to recognize, just in a very simple way, can you suffer mentally, emotionally? Can you have stress, worry, fear? Can you have these things that keep us up at night and really agitate the mind, or other feelings of anger, frustration, without some sense of how you want things to be, how you think things should be, whether things are what you consider safe for you or not safe for you, wanting things to make you happy, avoiding things that feel unsafe or unpleasant. And when we reflect upon that, you may find that pretty much we see the world through our own lens, as though even though we're not the center of the universe, and we know that intellectually, we will only experience the world from this perspective as the center of our universe, right? We only know what we know. We only have our experiences. We know like this much about the world we live in, and or history, or anything. And so everything that we experience in the world is always going to be through our specific lens, our subjective lens. It's not the way things are. It's just from our perspective, our experience, our conditioning. And then, of course, whether things accord in the way that, from our perspective, our little bit of experience in the world, that's what we're going to stress, worry about. And we don't have any idea about what's going to happen, 10 years from now. I mean, the world we're living in now, I mean, think about just since COVID, how much our world has changed that we didn't have any idea about prior to COVID, and we didn't expect COVID. The things that have happened in my own lifetime, when I go back often, I'll reflect upon, what life was like before answering machines. Before answering machines. Like somehow we communicated, we talked, we were connected, and if someone called my house and I wasn't there, I didn't know they called, unless, maybe later they'd tell me, I tried calling you earlier. What a very different universe that was in the world that we lived than how we live now. So the world's changing, we're changing. Uh, People we don't know are going to call us in the future. People we've never met are going to have impacts in our lives, could be incredible in ways that are positive or incredible in ways that are negative. The world is unfolding due to conditions and the karma that has been created just over eons, really. And somehow I can get the idea that I know how the world should be. Just understanding that on that level, it just doesn't add up, right? I have some idea of how somebody else should behave, how the world should be. And on the face of it, that's really not very grounded in reality. A slight shift of thought process is I can understand how I would like the world to be based on my perspective. Well, that I'm much more grounded. The world that we experience and the areas that we live in the world and the opportunities that we have to make improvements, well, those, based on those environments and where we live and who we are and this human form, how we show up, can have a wonderful impact or a harmful one. And those are always on a scale compared to the unpacking of the universe and the world and all that, important in the most significant way. On one level, we have no idea how things will unfold. On one point, we really don't know from our perspective at this moment the impact of our choices. But fundamentally, in what's been happening throughout these teachings that provide a grounding reality for us, is that I know certain actions will improve the quality of my mind, my understanding of how I exist in the world, and the ultimate causes of happiness and well-being through my choices in how I attend to others. And that is the journey. I can actually impact the world in ways that are just incredibly important. Not by trying to get other people to be different, but by me learning how to be different. And as I do so, I'm going to be much more skillful in having an impact that reduces suffering, that increases compassion, that it provides healing. It's just an amazing opportunity that we have, and in the process, free ourselves from the core root cause of self-centeredness that is keeping me in samsara, having me become fearful, stressed, worried, angry, frustrated. Especially when I recognize that what I am clinging to as John, that is the worrier, the stressed person, the angry person, it's not who I am. It's not how I exist. And the unpacking of that experience is how we wake up to who we are. We are not our fear. We are not our insecurity. We're not our anger. We're not the personality type that I identify with. You're going to notice throughout the day, if you like, whatever personality you give yourself, you're going to find the opposite shows up in other ways of being show up. Whether you feel like you're an outgoing person, sometimes you're not outgoing. If you're a shy person, you'll find there's sometimes you aren't shy. If whatever those qualities are that we attribute as being who we are, we're just going to find out that's just how we show up sometimes based on certain conditions. And we're different than we were, you know, a year ago, 2 years ago, and so forth. And we are always in a state of becoming. So with that in mind, the context for all of this, in understanding who we are and how we exist, and the real core root of my suffering, is me really grasping onto a sense of who I am and how important I am and how other people should be this way or that way, or things should be this way or that way, according to me, in a way I don't exist. So how do we engage in this world in a way that's productive and meaningful, that liberates us from the core root cause of my mental and emotional suffering and my constant struggles and anxieties or worries or fears or attachments? Well, I start seeing myself more accurately in how I am only existent, independent upon, well, we'd say a myriad of causes and conditions, but that's very vague. But in one sense, all other beings are giving birth to us, right? Our mothers. All other beings are producing the environment that we get to live in, the food we get to eat, the clothes we get to wear, the education we get. Everything about ourselves is only existent in dependence upon all of our mothers to give birth to us day to day. The chair I'm in, the computer I'm talking on, the streets outside, the stores I get to shop at, it's just on and on. And then I start to recognize, oh, I am actually arising as a human being in this body because my parents and their grandparents and, the genetics and the conditioning, the people that fed me and my schooling. And I'm actually going to drive by, I'm going to actually stop in a town that I used to go to elementary school in today. And, these people that built the school and the educators there and the whole system of education and the idea that we should have a public education, all of these things contributed to who I am. And think about you. So when I start to unpack how I exist, I'm going to recognize I'm not independent, and what I'm clinging to as being independent, John, how I am. Well, I start to recognize that I am always in flux, in a state of becoming, and only arising in dependence upon all of these things going on that have been being created. And people I've never met, centuries ago have created conditions for me to have a life. People I get to meet today are giving me opportunities to participate in life. So I'm a part of something arising interdependently, moment to moment, day by day. And my thoughts are shaped by others. And I start to really recognize I'm a part of something that is unfolding, not independent, self-existent John. And they're, whoa, okay, this is, this is then begging the question, well, what's my purpose here? Things happen, cause, result. Why am I here? Am I here to just draw from other people and animals and the world we live in, the climate, just to have fun? Try to, get the kind of house I want, do the kinds of vacations I want, do, whatever that is. Am I here to make a bunch of money? What am I here for? What's the point? And as we look at samsara and the conditioning, we start to see that when I start identifying with those worldly things as the source of my happiness and well-being, well, now I'm back to me and mine. Now I'm back to worldly concerns, and now I'm back to the cause of all of my suffering, which is the misunderstanding, not just of myself, but the misunderstanding that if those things happen in the way I would like, I'm going to be happy. And then I'm very stressed when they don't go that way, because then I won't be happy, or I won't be safe, or these things won't happen. And now I'm caught up once again in a web of mental and emotional afflictions, struggles, worries, and fears, hopes and anxieties that create stress. So what if I understood now that I have a purpose? Everything has arisen in a very unique way, and with meaning and purpose, that everyone and everything that's happening now in my life is providing me an opportunity for the purpose of my life, which is to understand myself and to be free of suffering, to wake up, to improve the world that we live in, to be of benefit to others. That my job here is not about self-centered desires, but it's to be of ultimate service to all. Like, that's what the opportunity is, that everything that's going to happen today, I'm making this recording in the morning or in the evening, everything that I'm about to embark upon today is an opportunity to improve the world by how I interact in the world, by driving safely, by attending to people, by the choices I make when I purchase things, by how I attend to myself. And am I cultivating understanding, wisdom, compassion, healthy decision making? Because the healthier I am, the more I have to offer. So the irony of this is, the more selfish, self-centered I am, the more suffering I cause for myself and others. But the more I understand I'm interdependent, the more self-care I'll give, and the more I'm able to help others. If you are, I was thinking about aspens, they're an organism, largest I think the largest at least the continuous United States, largest living organism is, they have mapped out in Utah, but technically it might be over by Kebler Pass in Colorado. Those aspen trees, their roots, they're connected. They're one organism, and you just see miles and miles of trees. And, nobody wants one tree to die that affects all the other trees, right? And so like that, we are connected. And I can only help others by being healthy and well. I'm part of this unfolding, much like these aspens are one organism. We are interdependent with all of life. And so it's very important then that I take care of me. When I think about being of benefit to all beings, you are all beings, so we are. And so we wind up with an incredible responsibility to take care of ourselves in healthy, meaningful ways, and to engage in life with some joy and some fun and some compassion and some care and some understanding about our connection. And from this space, there's going to be a lot less affliction. And we understand that terrible things happen because people are misunderstanding. And just a moment here. There we go. People are misunderstanding themselves, again, self-centered. They're caught up in the confusion of samsara, as we are, and they are suffering. They're suffering out of their fears and insecurities and the disease of samsara, of misunderstanding. And so we have an opportunity to understand that samsara is, at its core, suffering. So we don't expect it to be a place of just happiness and joy, right? And the thing about samsara and a human condition is that within a human form, especially a rare and precious human birth, such as the one you have, there's just enough suffering and just enough opportunity of well-being that we have an opportunity to recognize the suffering and have the capacity to transform into understanding and freedom from samsara. We can get better. So that's the context here, that everything that's unfolding is an opportunity for us to cultivate merit and wisdom, the two accumulations of Buddhahood, of enlightenment, of awakening. The merit is going to be based on what we call skillful means, bodhicitta, this great compassion, virtuous activities, as being helpful, loving, and kind, our skillful interactions with others. Wisdom is the understanding, the direct experience and understanding of how we actually exist. We start to see the interdependence. We start to experience the empty nature of the phenomenon, others, the world we experience. We start to see how it's very subjective and does not, in fact, contain the qualities and attributes that we assign to them. We're just experiencing in that way. So that sounds vague. And so that's, do you experience, I just had banana cream pie last night, and I experienced that as wonderful. So banana cream pie is wonderful. And then I was telling that to my sister-in-law, and she's like, oh, that's very rich for me, and, and doesn't like banana cream pie. So the attribute I would, give to banana cream pie is delicious, love it. And someone else has a very different experience. So again, the things and phenomena that we experience are not independently the way we experience them, right? We're filling in the certain attributes. So that's a very specific example I just had yesterday. But we forget all that, right? So the more that I cultivate an understanding that I'm having, a wonderful experience with this pie or whatever it is I'm doing, what activity I am, I happen to, this is going to be really weird for some people. So I'm in Los Angeles area, and Los Angeles is known for very busy freeways. 405 is one of the most notorious. And I actually enjoy driving on the busy 405 freeway. Most people don't. I get to enjoy it because I don't live here anymore, and I used to drive and commute, and I just kind of think of it as skills. I get to work on my skills in driving, in traffic, in having enough space, letting people get in, and being part of all these people trying to get somewhere, and all of their hopes and worries and fears and aspirations and places they're going and the families they're connected to. You're just in the middle of it all, and we're all working together to get somewhere. And for me, I just find that a wonderful experience on a short-term basis. If I lived here and had to do it every day, I'm not sure I would have that that same attitude, but for me, it's you know, because I live in a small mountain town, to be in the middle of that, I enjoy it. So most people don't. As we engage in this world, then remembering that how I'm experiencing the world is very subjective and how I exist very interdependent. And the more that we start to understand this, the more wisdom we cultivate. So we're cultivating merit, skillful means, virtuous activities out of compassion that fertilizes and creates the karma and the conditions for our wisdom to grow within us. And we start seeing ourselves as interdependent and becoming in the moments. And then we start to understand everyone and everything that we're experiencing today is nothing other than an opportunity for freedom, for cultivating merit and wisdom. There's nothing that will happen today that won't provide you an opportunity for merit and wisdom. Everything that's happening today is the path of awakening for you. And you're a part of this. And we owe it to others to do our job in that sense. And then as soon as we say we owe it to others, then there's this obligation. But it's not owed in the sense of this burden. If we follow these stages, these steps of bodhicitta, it's of course what we want to do. It is of course what we want to do. We recognize this is part of us. We are helping ourselves and others and everyone. We're interdependent. We're part of the, you know, we're the aspen grove, right? So that's where we're at with the third point here. The first point was recognizing everyone as giving birth to us, and then the ways in which they support us, right? Recognizing their kindness. We spent last week on that. And now we come to the point of repaying that kindness. So these are different realizations. One leads to the other. And let's pop open the text and get to that with my little lead in. All right. If we contemplate these points well, we will feel grateful to others for what they do for us, the important roles they play in our life. Recognizing and feeling grateful for others' kindness arouses the wish to repay their kindness. So it's not some difficult, painful thing. It's, yeah, of course, I want to do this. It's natural. I want to be a benefit to my family. It's natural. I want to be able to be a good, productive member of this unfolding. There are various ways to repay their kindness. We can start with what the Dalai Lama advises. Help others as much as you can. And if you can't help them, at least don't harm them. And that, I think, is just the foundation for it all. In any interaction I have, can I be helpful? That's the big question. How can I be helpful? About to get in a car. It's helpful to put the phone away, right? It's helpful to be alert. It's helpful to use your blinkers, to allow cushion in between the cars as much as possible. Whatever it is we're doing, we have the opportunity to be helpful. And sometimes we don't recognize that there's situations that I don't have much power over, to how someone's reacting to something or, a difficult situation, at least do no harm. I was visiting yesterday, actually. I was visiting with at a treatment center with the admissions director. And he's from India, actually, originally. And his mother has just consistently given him a bit of advice from her guru and how she lives is never give anyone sorrow. If you can avoid it, never give anyone sorrow. And so you think about that as this great love, right? Love is we want people to be happy, to be well, and we don't want to give them sorrow. And so with this attitude, we have this opportunity as we engage in the day to, if we can, be helpful, and we can all the time with certain things. But there's situations that we feel we can't be very helpful. And the Dalai Lama is, well, at least don't do harm, right? And that's where sometimes we just kind of button it up. Yeah. Sometimes we can do healthy boundary setting, hold people accountable, and it's helpful. And so sometimes even doing things that we don't think are helpful, in a sense, we can't recognize that can be very helpful. And by doing no harm, that's helpful. So really, His Holiness is framing this in this understanding of what's the healthiest thing to do here. What's the helpful thing? All right, let's get back to the text here. I want to make sure I finish when you have enough time to speak with each other. I hear you all have wonderful discussions once I get off the video here. Helping others with their present needs, such as food and money, is excellent. But as long as they remain in samsara, they will continue to suffer and will be bereft of genuine lasting happiness. Most beings are unaware of the methods to become free of samsara or even create virtue, which is the cause of future happiness. So the best way to repay their kindness is to help them learn the Dharma, the path that leads to good experiences in the future, liberation from samsara, and full enlightenment. That does not mean we should push people to listen to Dharma teachings or read Dharma books if they're not interested. There are other ways to share Dharma, and among the most beneficial ways is living in accordance with it, being kind, ethical, honest, and so on, and being a positive example for others to follow. We can also offer skillful advice to those who are going through difficulties using everyday language rather than Buddhist terminology. This is how we're being helpful. Dharma is about truth. It's not about Buddhist teachings. Buddhist teachings illuminate truth, but think about healthy, good advice that we can give people. And we don't want to downplay the benefit that we can provide by feeding others, helping people in their worldly, foundational needs. Because it's important to understand that people are not ripe for the higher levels of Dharma teachings about healthy living and virtue and all that if they can't feed themselves. So that whole Maslow's hierarchy of needs, basic needs being met first, food, clothing, shelter, safety, medical care. So very important there to even be able to then bring some healthy advice, some emotional support. So first they need to be fed, clothed, and safe and okay. But with the point being made here is that one thing we can do every day, and that is most important, is to live the Dharma. That's going to provide us the opportunity not merely to be a good example. People notice when you embody the Dharma, but also we'll have much greater wisdom and skillful means to share the Dharma, to share good advice because we've experienced these things. And so often, people say, what about, somebody's in a cave meditating, they're up there for 10 years. How's that helping others? And they're doing the greatest work. They are becoming awakened, enlightened, so that they can have so much more to offer, so much more to offer. And Jetsuma Tenzin Palmo, right? 12 years in a cave, and look at the incredible abundance of teachings and the fact that we, in our own lifetime, have a role model, a model of someone who did these things, who we know exists today, who we can listen to and take Bodhisattva vows with and be guided by. I mean, imagine if our teachers were just people who read books and passed down ancient teachings, right? So that does happen in religions, right? There's people who take ancient texts and they read them and they share them and they've been taught what they mean. We have that, but we also have beings who did those things living among us today. And those beings have the capacity to share with us from direct experience, not simply the text, not something they read, not something, that was, this ancient thing that, we may or may not believe happened at some point, but a direct experience of someone who's done those things, lived those things, had these experiences, and can tell us how to have them ourselves. So don't ever underestimate the power of being a good example. Yeah, how incredible that is. And then they're dedicating their life to preserving these teachings and offering them for us. And we have the opportunity ourselves. So that this gift that we have to repay the kindness of others is through our own transformation. And then the skillful ways with which we help alleviate their struggles and sufferings, not preaching Buddhism, preaching the truth and helpful and skillful methods that reduce suffering based on their subjective experience of the world, if they're Catholic and so forth. When my mom was passing away, devout Catholic, I'm a Buddhist monk. I'm leading the Catholic rosary with my family, and we're doing the Catholic prayers when I sat with my mom. That's what we're doing. And so really not an evangelical bone in our bodies in terms of being Buddhist, but rather an example of Buddhism that will speak to people and share with them the Dharma in ways that make sense to them. And in this way, we start to have real value and a real way to pay back the life that everyone's offering us. All right, let's back here. Sorry, I have this little pop-up thing to get rid of. Okay. Another way to share the Dharma is to visualize ourselves surrounded by all mother sentient beings when we meditate or recite prayers, mantras, and sutras. Even though this is imaginary, it nonetheless enhances our compassion and love and creates the cause for us to one day enact the Buddha's activity of teaching Dharma to all beings. Yeah, we don't want to underestimate the imagination. Our minds telling us stories all day long, none of which are, well, probably almost none of which are true. And so visualizing all other beings with us, visualizing people getting better, we're actually making a difference. It's not simply an exercise in our imagination. We're creating potentials in our minds. We're bringing those people to our hearts. If we bring someone to our mind specifically and we're praying for them, they're becoming connected to the karma of our virtuous action. And so really valuable to bring others to mind when we're engaged in prayer and meditation. There's in Tibetan Buddhism, I always invite you to visualize being surrounded by others, people you don't like, people you do like, people you care for, and teachers. And, I'll often, bring my teachers to mind in the space in front of me and really set the tone that we're in this practice together and that everything's coming through me is because of them. And, we have guru yoga practice where they dissolve into your heart and really melt into your very way of being. They're a part of. Really helpful to ripen the mind. Okay, let's see what else we got here. Yeah, and it creates the cause for us to one day enact the Buddha's activity of teaching Dharma to all beings. We're creating the conditions for that. And here's the conclusion. We are entirely dependent on others in every aspect of our lives. The kindness we have received from them is immense. Resolve to remember this and generate a feeling of gratitude and practice repaying it as much as you can. So that is the practice. The equanimity, 0 point, the baseline for this practice. Seeing everyone as having been our mother, and the various methods we talked about with that. Recognizing their kindness, and then this opportunity to repay it. Now, each point leads to a realization, and that realization leads to the next point. And so it's 7-point cause and result. Each point has a result. Final result will be bodhicitta. Do you need to wait till you have full equanimity before you start seeing others as giving life to you as being your mother? No. Do you need to, they're going to come hand in hand. Seeing their kindness will help you see others as having been your mother. Some people understand in their own mind about the idea of rebirth. It makes sense to them. Some people do not. So we need to, I think, the point of recognizing the kindness of others is a great starting point. It's going to build equanimity and the ability to see how others give birth to us and open those doors. So in that sense, the second point of recognizing the kindness of others, I think, is really a good foundational starting point. And then we get here where naturally we want to be helpful. We recognize our opportunity as a part of this experience of all others to do our role, our purpose, and it's joyful. And in the process, it's freeing us of the primary root cause of our suffering, self-grasping in a way I don't exist. So everybody's actually helping us be free. And as we become free, we have the opportunity to help all others. So that's where we're at with this point. Okay.
Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om Tare Tu Tare Tu Re Soha. Om